Okay, going to be lounging around in bed while I read Dear Edward. This is just the dust jacket. I took it off of the book. I didn't want it to get jacked up. Here's the book. It is for the Barnes & Noble Adult Book Club that is on Tuesday. Today is Sunday, and I'm like 7 pages in. So I've got a ways to go. Okay, well, everybody just boarded the flight and they're getting ready to take off. I know that doesn't sound like a whole lot has happened since the beginning of the book started with them in the airport, but you're actually learning a lot about a group of different passengers, getting some history on them, and then now they're getting ready to take off. By the way, if you hear rain sounds, I am reading with sounds of rain running. Okay, well, I'm here with the boys, and we are still reading Dear Edward, and the crash has happened. It happened at the very beginning of chapter 2. And there was just something super sweet that happened. The people that were moving, Edward's family, stopped and unloaded all the boxes to find Edward's box and mailed him his favorite stuffed toy while he's in the hospital. It was very touching already. Okay, so Edward's getting out of the hospital. They put him on an airplane. I'm sorry, if I just survived a plane crash and my whole family died, I am not getting on a plane, okay? He's just leaving the hospital that he was in now in New Jersey with his aunt and uncle. And there's all these people standing across the street from the hospital, like waiting for him with signs of support. But then he like, hi, thanks, you know, because he's like 12 or 13 or something. And like one of the guys is like freaking out, all excited that the miracle boy waved to him like, oh my God, I'm so cool. I don't know. It's just like, humans. You guys, I made Dear Edward brownies.
What? You say you got brownies? You better give me some of them brownies. Ooh, now you know that look good. You know I love brownies. And every time I see one gooey hot, it makes me want to eat. It makes me want to have some. But there's something about this brownie right here. This brownie right here, it makes me want to, woo!
Well, we took a break to go eat at Chipotle, then came back to the house, and we watched Parasite because it was on like 1,000 people's best movie of the year lists. Both of us, me because of the color grading of the trailer, him, I'm not sure why, but both of us thought it was going to be some freaky horror film. So there was a lot of things that kept amping up my like supernatural thriller horror kind of vibes going on. And then it was kind of just metaphor and allegory, what's the word I'm looking for classism, but it was really good. It was just for like the first half of the film, I kept overanalyzing like every tiny little detail, trying to figure out what the suspenseful thriller horror aspect of this film was that wasn't really there, but it was excellent all by itself. The color grading, and I guess the fact that it's a Korean film just had me convinced it was a horror. Yes, I woke up like this, and yes, I know I'm bootyful. Okay, this little 12-year-old boy has some deep thoughts. Okay, as an example of his like bizarrely deep thought, he'd wanted to leave immediately, somehow knowing that those four walls couldn't bear both Lacey's grief and his own. Children who were never born and parents no longer alive. Okay, I think I just keyed in on something. Spoiler alert, potentially, if I'm right. So Florida keeps talking about how she's lived other lives. Sometimes she's been born into them, and sometimes she takes over someone's body at the point of death. I'm wondering if Edward died, and this is some Florida type person, or it is Florida, and she jumped from Florida's body dying in the plane into Edward's body dying in the plane and continued to live. Edward and Lacey watch in silence with a seriousness that would have amused Edward back when he was a normal boy. Here's another example of, I don't know if Edward is Edward anymore. Maybe Anne just doesn't know how to write like the way a 12-year-old boy's brain would be working. Edward's parents used to argue regularly, but this sounds different, sadder, and more desperate. Like John and Lacey are on the side of a mountain and unprepared in terms of both fitness and supplies. They sound keenly aware that one or both of them might lose their grip and fall at any second. That's like not a 12-year-old boy's thoughts. Okay, I think it's time to go shower, because this it looking trashy. Book unboxing. Can you hear the air conditioning filter? Ooh, look how filthy that is. It definitely needs to be changed. I should be doing that instead of opening these books, but I'm not. The Harper Lee graphic novel for To Kill a Mockingbird and Snow Falling by Jane the Virgin. I also ordered Washington Black. Ooh, this feels floppy. Took a break, got a haircut. Uh-oh, we got another package. Floppity. Deckled edges. Oh, and Bob. It is now 11:13 p.m. I thought I was going to be almost done with Dear Edward by now. I fell asleep 4 hours or something crazy. I'm still obsessing on wanting to read just the first chapter of Don Quixote, but I'm convinced if I pick it up, I'm going to end up reading the entire thing, and I will not have finished Dear Edward by tomorrow night for the Barnes & Noble Book Club. So Bentley and I are trying to finish reading Dear Edward, but this keeps happening. Look at this little brat dog. Spoiled brat dog. No reading, Dear Edward. You must pet the baby. Okay, reading Dear Edward here. Bentley, are you participating? Hello. Are you reading Roscoe? Oh, you lovey. Oh, you're just a lovey. You're just a lovey baby. You're just a lovey baby. Is it way past your bedtime? Okay, I have not seen The Joker, but I have watched a lot of people's videos about it, and I remember something similar talking about Heath Ledger's versus Joaquin's Joker the moment you realize how dangerous they are. Something along the lines of, this is Shay talking. She says, "No one there can hurt you," Shay says. "No one can hurt you ever again. You've already lost everything. Right?" This startles something deep inside Edward. He tries the words in his mouth. "No one can ever hurt me." That is now, I don't know if it would have before seeing the Joker videos. Before seeing the Joker videos, but now it's kind of ominous sounding. Like, is Edward going to be a bad guy? I feel like I'm just being influenced by the Joker video, though. Oh, look at the little tired baby. Like 15 more pages. 15 more pages. Then you can go to sleep. You're the snuggliest. Oh yes, Roscoe, we have reached the end of part 1. Are you excited? Okay, so the very end of part 1, there's going to be a memorial set up at the location of the plane crash, a bunch of birds kind of linked together in the shape of an airplane, and Edward, doesn't want to go. And his friend Shay asks him if he doesn't want to go because he doesn't want to get on a plane, and he says yes. Now this takes me back to when he's leaving the hospital in Colorado to go to the hospital in New Jersey, and they put him on a plane. And there was like no mention of any drama regarding that, and I feel like it would have at least warranted them sedating him, and now it's a year later and he doesn't want to get on a plane. I guess, maybe things have changed, or, he was so busy dealing with the trauma of his body that he wasn't coping with the emotional and mental trauma yet, so it just wasn't hitting him. But then Shay also says something that I feel, I don't know, it feels ominous. She says the odds are impossible that anything like that could happen to you again. You'd basically guarantee the safety of the plane by getting on it. And he goes on to explain how that's not true. And she said, "That's interesting, because I always feel bulletproof when I'm with you, as if I'm safe by association." Now this makes me think something is going to happen to Shay. Shay, you best not die. I like your character. Okay, so it's like almost 3 a.m. I just finished part 1, beginning part 2. Not now, but in the morning. I really love the multiple perspective thing, and these people aren't doing anything special. At one point, it was this very curvaceous, beautiful flight attendant walking down the row, and you were bouncing around from each person's perspective about what they were thinking about her. And I love getting to see the different people and how they react to the same thing. And then I get to sit there and think, like, what would I be thinking? And kind of put myself into that situation or that world. I just find that fascinating. It's such a short little bit that you get with each character, so it's constantly like bam, 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 with new information going on and all these different people's personalities coming through. Don Quixote is still next to my bed and mocking me with its beautiful deckled edges. If you don't like deckled edges because you don't know how to turn a page properly because you weren't raised right, well, I don't know what to tell you, but you're wrong. The paper on the cover is like watercolor paper texture, and it's so floppy. Oh, I brought this up because I think this will be the first new book in March that I want to pick up. Does anybody care to buddy read this? Between Edward and what's going on in the world sometimes. And sometimes I think it's been a few years now, and he should probably be able to start working on or learn to be his own buffer and not be so dependent upon her. But it's also nice that they found each other and it's a complementary relationship. It's not like Shay's a parasite just leeching off of his tragedy and a way to get some excitement in her life. Kind of like with him sleeping on her floor for over a year. I just think it's too long, but I've never fallen out of the sky, so what do I know? Okay, I'm really loving the on the airplane perspective shifts. So we go from Linda, who is sitting next to Florida, and Linda is thinking about how she cannot wait to get off of this plane. She cannot wait to get away from Florida, who is like encroaching on her personal space. Then later we go to Florida's perspective, and she's thinking about how she's leaving her husband, but she's going to start loving everyone and not one person in particular. And she's going to start with Linda, and she's going to be there to take care of her and mother her while she's worrying about this pregnancy and her new relationship. And she's going to be a grandmother to this woman's baby, and she's envisioning them off on some boat studying whales together. And it's just like so interesting to see how these two women are right next to each other and having the same conversation together, but totally taking things in drastically different ways. And Napolitano, you are an amazing writer, and I love that you constantly shift perspectives, and at the end of each perspective, you leave us right at the height of the excitement of what's going on. It's like a shepherd's tone of words. It's just this constant rising. It never is not getting more exciting. You never get to the end of the excitement. It's just rising excitement. It's brilliant. If you like cheese enchiladas and reading books with fake rain. You guys can't hear the fake rain, right? Okay, so Edward has just decided he's going to skip school so he can try to finish reading these letters that people have written to him. He convinces Shay that both of them can't skip because that'll be too obvious and they'll get in trouble and they'll be found out. Okay, so all these letters are people asking him to learn the violin. My daughter loved the violin. Become a doctor. My daughter was going to save so many lives. And, you know, all these like high pressure things for this little boy. So he decides that he's going to do what he thinks his brother would do today. And his brother would eat food like a regular human being because Edward is like barely eating. So he goes in and makes himself some more food, even though he's just had breakfast, and then leaves the house to go to the garage. It's like a detached garage to eat and start reading. Well, he opens the door and Shay's in there and says, "What, you didn't bring me any food?" Rude. It just cements how much I really love Shay as a friend character because she just does the thing that you need. She doesn't say, "Do you want me to ditch anyway?" She just does it. If I had all those letters, I would be freaking out that they kept them from me because I mean, Edward has spent all this time kind of in limbo or something, and having these letters and being able to, with supervision, act on them. I mean, what if some of the letters had said something like, "I hope that you start writing a journal," you know, whatever, something doable that could have helped ease him through the whole situation? I don't know. But now I'm at the very end of part 2. I'm looking at part 3. We contain the other, hopelessly and forever. James Baldwin. They're about to go on an adventure because of one of these letters that had a secret in it. Okay, I forgot to say that one of these letters was from the rich jerk's brother. So apparently the rich jerk is very type A, and his brother is like a surf bum that lives out of a van and is Buddhist and extremely type B and like has no possessions. And his brother left him all of his money, plus the insurance check that came out to $7.3 million. And the hippie Buddhist brother took it as a slap in the face against his chosen lifestyle, so wrote Edward a check for $7.3 million that sat in an envelope in a duffel bag in a garage for 2 years. So Edward's just now gotten it, and Shay is like, oh my god, what are you gonna do with this money? Now, at this point, Edward already has $5 million coming to him when he turns 21 from a trust. The first thing I thought of is, why is he not giving some money to his aunt and uncle? Why is he not giving money for Shay's college? Why is he not paying off Shay's mom's house? Then with his brother's girlfriend's letter confessing that they were secretly dating, she was planning to move to LA to study physics and surprise him by moving out to the West Coast also so that they could continue seeing one another. Why is he not paying for Mahira's college? Like, I don't know. This is why I don't have any money, because I just give money away. Oh, and it says a critical fact that would be brought up in the NTSB hearing 7 months later. That's the hearing that he didn't attend. He was in the basement. The issues of the plane starting to arise with the pilots. This is a very short in-plane scene. And the only other part is with Jordan, Edward's brother. And Jordan is fantasizing about his life without his parents, living with Mahira in Los Angeles, in a studio, high-ceiling apartment with a loft bed. He's wearing glasses, even though he doesn't need glasses, and drinking coffee, even though he doesn't drink coffee. And just fantasizing over this imagined image of himself, and that just cracks me up because I spend so much of my day like daydreaming about, what if I was a history professor, and then envisioning myself. I have like a Pinterest board with outfits that my imaginary professor self would wear because I'm mental. And just weird stuff like that. So that kind of cracked me up. I mean, the rest of Jordan's character I don't really relate to, or Edward really. There's not really anybody in this book that feels like, oh my god, that's so me. But this one little piece of Jordan feels very me. And you cannot write teenager thoughts. So Edward and Shay are meeting Mahira. She works in a deli with her family. So like a little court, like a 7-Eleven kind of a store with a deli. So that's where they're at. Edward looks at Shay and then does a double take. She has 2 cans of soup balanced in one hand and a loaf of bread under her arm and a bag of pretzels. What? She whispers. I thought we should buy something so we don't look weird. Trust me, he says, we look weird. But he's grateful to her again for coming and for being nervous with him, even though she can't parse all of his specific anxieties. What? The on-plane sections of the book seem to be getting shorter and shorter, which makes them feel more and more intense. Like you're just like, I need more information! Give me more information! I need to know what's happening here! Instead of jumping from multiple perspectives, then we move down to just 2, now we're down to just 1, and it's not one long section, it's the same short sections. So you're just seeing one person's reaction to something that just happened on the plane, not everyone's. So it's feeling more intense. I just finished Dear Edward. Definitely 5 stars. The writing was amazing. I mentioned previously it was like literary shepherd's tone, just a never-ending rising and building and crescendo of intensity and excitement. My best friend Mono said, make sure you read beyond the acknowledgments. Now, he was reading out of my Barnes & Noble Book Club edition, and there is a author's note on how she came up with the novel and her writing process and stuff, and then the 10 questions for Barnes & Noble Book Club, potential book club discussion kind of topics. There was also the epilogue. Reading through the epilogue takes away some of the open-ended, it's obvious this is going to probably happen-ness of the book, and solidifies it. And I think I enjoy the unknown. So I'm going to have to disagree with him and say, don't read the epilogue. But now I feel like everybody needs to read this book because holy cow, that writing style. The on the plane scenes specifically. I mean, sometimes it was just paragraphs of people talking about the flight attendant's booty wiggling as she walks down the aisle. It was just so fascinating seeing all these different people react differently to a shared experience. And I just think that is amazing how different things are. Like Linda in Florida and sitting next to each other and talking, and how Linda just cannot wait to get away from Florida, and how Florida is fantasizing about going on whale watching excursions with her and her baby when they're older. Just, I don't know, it was just really, it was intense. I enjoyed it. I don't know, I really want to know if anybody else has found a Shepherd's Tome styled book that you could recommend. It was an amazing read. It was probably the most you just gotta keep reading book that I think I've read. It might be more you gotta keep going than The Night Circus was for me. Where Dear Edward, every 5 to 15 minutes, you're like at the top of a roller coaster before you're about to crash down, but then like you reset and you're on the clickety clacks, going right back up again, and just as you're about to go over the edge, you reset again. So it's just like, oh my gosh, it was intense. Read it, buy it, get a signed copy of it, buy a little airplane to put on a shelf with it. Okay,